depending on aliens. They kicked the Queen out of Buckingham Palace. They killed Putin, and they killed other people, probably Schwab and everybody. I just said recently that Schwab's a fucking hologram. And said, notice you'll never see him with anybody else. He's always speaking by himself, from a podium or something. So he might be interviewed by somebody but it's quite distant. So Ion puts no stock in Schwab and those guys are the front for the aliens. So the alien story, Ion is very careful what they say about it because they want to keep Bob alive. They protect me, but if you get too blatant, I don't know, somebody could say, oh, let's take the fucking bomb and bomb Maui. You know what I mean? Let's get Bob. We got to get rid of him.
A new Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. So what happened? The Queen in Buckingham Palace in the summer of 21 was sitting there, and all of a sudden the walls started screeching. And then the statues in Buckingham Palace, which is a huge place, started screeching. And she put up with it, I said, for about 3 weeks. She was determined not to back down. But she eventually had to leave. And then that's what she called JW. And I didn't finish the point that his great-grandfather once a year had to go to Washington to, tell what's going to happen in the South for Washington power people. And they would wait for 2 weeks for JW's great-grandfather to get to Washington by buggy. So Washington was shut down for a couple weeks till he got there, and then they'd work out the plan for the next year. So his great-grandfather knew Queen Victoria. So JW's family has always known the monarchy. And he met recently in 2010 with the Queen, hadn't met her much before, and that's when she found out about Ion and got on our product. So she's been tuned to us for 12 years.
Was JW into Joyce and McLuhan and all those guys before the Ion thing? No.
He was a billionaire. He's a businessman. Here's what happened. In Neufeld came here in February 22nd, 2009. The guy who did the album, Dave Neufeld, he visited us. And the day he arrived, earlier day, JW called me. And he said, Bob, what does the android mean? I've been saying stuff like this, but he ignored it. Basically, I would listen to him. He had a lot to say about a lot of things that I didn't know about because of the level he was on. So he calls me, asks me something. What's the android mean? So I explain it. And I said, why are you asking me? He said, well, I just had a meeting with my friend Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett started talking about McLuhan, how McLuhan changed his life in the 60s. And Buffett learned something from McLuhan. I don't know what. And he says, but he was going on about tactility. And I remembered you used to say that word. So what is tactility? What does that mean? So it was the first time he took interest in what I said. And so then over the last few years, he's gotten a little bit more. Now, that was 2009. That was 3 weeks before Ion showed up. Didn't know Ion was going to show up. But Ion has been very involved with me and McLuhan. But what happened in the first 6 months, I would talk McLuhan stuff. He said, that's bullshit, Bob. And he would counter McLuhan stuff. And after 6 months, he said, okay, we've been looking at your work. You have the 5-bodied model and the 5 bodies. We accept that. We accept your 5-bodied. And now in the future, when you quote McLuhan, that's okay. But you've got to say, but Bob says, and then you lay out some of your 5-bodied stuff, which is better than McLuhan. So I would only tolerate, after 6 months, any talk of McLuhan if I preface it with, or followed it by saying, well, that's what McLuhan says, but I say this, because Ian says my stuff's more important. Now, through the years, Ian is an expert on the tiny node chart. He talks about it incredibly, way more than anybody else. So he knows my stuff, and he explains where it's useful and not. But he did recently say that McLuhan did anticipate the tech body, so he gave McLuhan that. But he's always explaining what McLuhan knew and didn't know. So if you don't listen, you don't hear these points. But I know from my experience that Ian has a lot to say about all these things that you're interested in and follow from your essay. So the Queen had to leave Buckingham Palace. Now, if you go back and look at the news, within a couple of weeks, people at The Guardian had started reporting something weird's going on at Buckingham Palace. There's blinds in all the windows, and there's like 1,000 windows. There's no more special guards in front. There's just police. And the gate, the front gate, has its heraldry or symbol gone. It was removed. So Buckingham Palace was shut down, but they never announced why. But she had to get out because the aliens kicked her out. I asked Ian, why do they got against the Queen? Well, her family, her uncle, the guy in 36 who was king for 6 months or something and married the American widow, he was a follower. Yeah. He supported the Nazis.
Right.
And met with Rudolph. What's that guy? Rudy somebody?
Hess.
Yeah, Rudolph Hess or whatever his name was. He flew to England, and met with them. But the thing is, the Nazi Pentagon guys are having a bit of a tantrum. They want to get rid of their past that got them over here, and so they kicked the Queen out of Buckingham Palace because they don't like her because of her history, which is not her fault really, but she has that history. So they did some karma, so to speak, on her, kicked her out. She's lost it all. She's pissed, and they occupy the Buckingham Palace. So whenever JW goes over there, he has to go to Sandringham or Windsor Castle. That's where the Queen is, not at Buckingham Palace anymore. So as he got closer to the Jubilee, there was a compromise made. So if you look at the footage of the Queen at Buckingham Palace, you will see all the windows are covered up. There's no lights on inside, and it shows her. I didn't see it, but JW said you see her coming down the hallway inside the building as she approaches the balcony. It's dark. It's never dark in the background in Buckingham Palace, but it is now because she's only allowed to use the surface balcony. So Ian and JW laid out the discrepancies of the way they showed the palace during the Jubilee. They let her have that because they probably don't want it all out that the aliens are there. And so that's the biggest thing. So Ian says in my private session the other day, Bob, the big thing to realize is that you are being invaded, and this is really bad because the aliens, they want something, and they don't care about humans, and they're going to let the earth fall apart. So when the stars collapse and the mountains rock up, that's the apocalypse of the earth vomiting. So all this destruction of the earth is going to happen, and the bottom half of the earth is going to fall off. I ain't saying all this stuff, okay? We're listening to the movie, a great movie, Ion. And, of course, it's all bullshit, and certainly wouldn't tell Znore this. I'm not going to tell Znore this. He won't respect me anymore. He won't write about me anymore. Here I am talking Znore, because Znore already knew about it, which I didn't know. So Ion's laying out all this Armageddon that's coming and explaining the step-by-step. Basically, because the supply chain is broken and the truckers aren't putting the stuff out much, and once you start fucking up with the fertilizer from Russia or whatever they need in the global supply chain routes, it stops everything. Nothing can be made because you haven't got the parts. And so Ian says this is slowly coming in. He's been saying that the last 6 weeks. And so, like, in the next couple of months, you're going to have starvation here. And I've noticed on our own site, Ian and Bob, Ed does a real good job showing the alternative stuff. All these farmers are saying, holy fuck, we're shit, we're screwed. They're really starting to get mad right now, this weekend, right. With their blogs. You might see some of it because they don't have it.
All over the place.
Yeah, so the Queen, JW went over there and helped her for the last stages. Now, the Queen talks very personally to JW. And this is sort of confidential, but Ian said it on the show, so I guess I can say it. But he says back in September, her main question was, how did Bob do this? Meaning, how did this Ion thing happen? Because she's the head of a religion. So is the Pope. And they got to deal with this, quote, new religion. Because way back, 6 months into my experience with Ion, one day they said to me, like in the 5th hour of a 7-hour night, he said, Bob, get serious. This is something important. I said, well, what is it? They said, well, first there was Templardom. Then there was Christendom. I said, no, you got that backwards. Templardom comes after Ion. No, Bob. The Templars go back to the Egyptian pyramids and Moses. He helped build the pyramids. Did you know that? That Moses was a pyramid builder? I don't think that's well known.
Yeah.
Anyway, you never heard of that before, did you?
What I found out from reading the Bible this time, and I didn't know it, was that both Joseph and Jacob, his father, afterwards, were interned as Egyptian mummies, which meant so they became like their bodies became mummified afterwards. So they went through the whole ritual, which is based on the mysteries of Sirius, right? It's
Right.
like Sirius 70 days in the underworld, and it's the same. The mummification period is like 70 days. So that's right at the beginning of the Hebrew religion, the mysteries of Sirius, which is like, for me, that was a mind blower, So yeah, and Moses, like you said, Moses just continues that, like a.
Right. So here's the thing, I would correct you. The Ark of the Covenant that they took out of Egypt when they were allowed to go, and they went across the Sinai, is it? The waves open? It's the Sea of Sinai? No, that's Mount Sinai. The Sea of something.
The Red Sea.
Red Sea, yeah. So they're carrying the Ark of the box with the Ark of the Covenant. Well, what's in it is Joseph's bones. So that didn't get mummified, the bones. You know what I mean? And he may not have got mummified.
It doesn't say the bones. It says his remains. And that was his whole body. So you can find out in the Bible that Joseph actually gets Egyptian priests to overlook the remains of Joseph, right, and to intern him. So there's two patriarchs, two Israeli patriarchs, Joseph and his father Jacob, who became mummified. Which is like, to me that was a mind blower to find that out.
Okay, that's good. Okay, I might agree with that. Yes, the remains were mummified, but the bones were given to Moses, and they took it across the Ark of the Covenant and put it there. And that was their history.
The Ark wasn't there yet. Like the Ark came you remember the Ark came after gets the tablets, right, from Mount Sinai.
So they were carrying the bones and a couple other things with them, and then they put them in the Ark.
But I don't know. Hard to say.
It's vague.
In the Bible, it just says it's the Ten Commandments. That's the only thing in the Ark. That's what it says in the Bible. But who knows?
Well, wait till you hear Ian explain the Ten Commandments. It says, "Thou shalt not murder." What they mean is you can't murder anybody because nobody dies. They survive death. So it's a technical statement. It's like a law of the universe. Thou shalt not murder. Shall meant you can't do it. Back then. So Ian has done a new interpretation of the Ten Commandments. So now back to the Ark of the Covenant. So they make it. So Ian says that's where the Jews made the mistake. They put all their power in the Ark of the Covenant. So they remained little men. And we're now turning the tech body into a new Ark of the Covenant and putting our power in it by overusing it and relying on it too much.
Yeah, so that's the center of the temple, right? Like that's So that means the temple becomes externalized through the network. It's like it's an interesting thought. Like so, the AI itself is the temple. The center.
Right. That's right. And then but there is a temple. When I met JW in 2006, he said to me, I said, what would you like to do? Or what do you want? You're a billionaire. You've got anything you want. Do you want anything? He said, I want Balmoral Castle, which is the Queen's, big property, Balmoral, if you know about it. And he says, I want to rebuild the Solomon's Temple. A year or two later, Iron comes through. And then we start finding out how to make the new Temple of Solomon. And it's going to have the cold fusion, our battery, our endless electricity is going to be in it, and it was in the original. So we got a lot of spelling out of what the temple is. That's why you're familiar with whatever you can be familiar with the temple, because you read around and read all the different angles. You'll be surprised at what extra stuff you get from Ion about it, if you believe Ion.
So where does he say the Ark is? Is he any comments on that?
I was just going to bring that up. Yeah. The hint is JW has it, but he won't. He doesn't tell anybody where it is.
In his storage basement.
So when I met JW in 2006-07, he was just buying the statues from Eastern Ireland, and they arrived while we were staying at his place in April 2007. We didn't see him, but he got word that they had arrived and he'd be putting them somewheres. So he went to the Easter Island people, and they don't sell that shit, but they sold it to JW for some reason. So he got them, and that's before Ion showed up. So JW was acting out what was going to happen to him, what he would have access to once Ion happened. You know what I mean? We went to the Vatican in 2011, in August 2011, and it's bankrupt, so they're trying to sell stuff. So they took us down to their basement with all the secret artifacts they have. And we're down there, me and JW, and we're with the Cardinal. He's showing us around. Then I didn't know this. JW didn't know this. Cardinal didn't know it. Ion starts speaking through JW. And I just heard the words, but I didn't know what they meant. The voice says, we want to see room 323. Some number like that. And the Cardinal looks a bit surprised. He says, you know about that? And JW's voice says, yes, we want to see it. So they then showed us what they don't show anybody, with the real secret stuff. So we saw it because Ion knew where it was and knew they weren't showing us. That's the kind of experiences I've had with JW and Ion.
So what was it? Room 320.
I'm not allowed to say because.
Okay, here's Finnegan's Wake 323. The first indentation. Upon this dry cell of selenium. Upon this dry call of selenium cell, that hour of long Halloween, Ireland's in peril with its doomed crack of the old dam Ukanen power in sound in it. The Lord is of the saloom. As if for a flash, Salamgunded himself listed this tumult past pack, and here and that presently returned him. So the first thing is... You should
be part of our show. Yeah, you're contributing a lot of good stuff there.
This dry call of selenium cell, that gives me...
that's technology. That's some kind of technology.
That gives me a hint.
Yeah, they got stuff down there.
You don't even have to say it, Bob. I can just look it up.
Yeah, just use your ESP. Yeah, but that's why you should be part of our show every now and then. Come in, because Bert is really good. When Bert and Carolyn get on, they do the most study of the details. And Carolyn has all the stuff she gets about chemistry and making new products that she doesn't talk about. You don't hear that. You can't hear it. The drug companies would get a hold of it. So anyways, Bert asks a lot of good questions as an outsider. He doesn't get the inner stuff, but he studied everything so much. He knows everything. He evokes a lot of good stuff with Ian every show, which is now every second Saturday. You should be on there with us because you can have these synchronistic tuned in things and supplement what we're saying. So you're missing out on enjoying new experiences here of what your synchronicity. Syncbook will love you for this. Syncbook will make you king of the fucking website or whatever it is. Because you get access to Ion.
It's pretty obsolete. Yeah.
That's very good.
I don't know.
Well, let me finish.
Don't have much time.
I know. You guys all worry about time, wife, kids, and mortgage. You know what I mean? You got to fucking survive.
The wife and kids and all that. But,
get
your billionaire friend to send me some cash, and then no problem. I'll be there every time.
That's what everybody wants. They hang around and get that check from JW. So what I was saying, we've done a lot of interesting things, and JW often doesn't know what's going on until we tell him, but he usually downloads everything within 24 hours. It comes to him what Ian was talking about, but he doesn't have time to really focus on that because he's busy making our living water and our incredible products. He does that part in Georgia. We have a special, amazing technology to do all this, and that all came from Ion. So what we're talking about JW and his history. Did I finish on the Queen? And so the Queen asks, how does Bob do this? And JW doesn't say much. He doesn't know what to say. Well, I don't know. I don't know how it happened. It's a mystery to me, says JW. So she's got that. She's a smart lady. She thinks clearly about what she should think about. One should say, how the hell did this Ion happen? Oh, I didn't finish. So Ion says, I'm saying, no, Temple of Din was after Christendom. No, it was before. So he explains that. And then he says, so it's going to be Temple of Din, Christendom, and then Iondom. So I said, 6 months into my experience of Ion. I said, I don't want to start a religion. I'm not doing a religion. He said, oh, Bob, this is going to be far from a religion. And that's exactly what it is. It's so far from a normal religion. But it is a new level of knowledge. So Ion predicted that, and as the years have unfolded, that's what's happened. We've created something new, and we're in charge. The Illuminati is totally, the traditional Illuminati is totally bankrupt. They're trying to become friends of mine on my Facebook page to get in with us, to get some kind of connection, as we slowly take over, because the whole world is sitting there on the elite level waiting for this ET contact. They know that's the big thing. Because if that happens, if Einstein's telling the truth, and this happens with me, and we have a press conference, holy shit, the world. So Einstein says what's going to happen is that 22 of the vehicles of the they like to say UAP, so that you never can research UFO anymore, so the young kids won't know UFO, won't miss all that stuff on the internet, and they'll just go with the new bullshit under UAP. So you keep saying UFO. And so, what was I saying? I was explaining something about the UFO. I was just saying that the UFOs are coming, but what the heck? There's so many little epiphanies. So the epiphany of that one, I got to remember.
Well, you probably think of it. I got a quick question though. So then, well, it's not really a quick one, but so the whole Joseph Farrell take and all this, that side of things, where they say it's a psyop, it's coming in as a psyop,
right? And
that's obviously happening as well, aside from anything else. Yeah,
the present aliens, the Pentagon aliens, are putting out all that bullshit and encouraging it because they don't want people to realize it's really coming, which is what they're really concerned with.
So if there's contact coming, right? But they've already made contact, like they're in the Buckingham Palace or whatever.
No, that's the Pentagon aliens.
Yeah.
The new aliens have not come here yet.
So when you're saying contact, you mean contact with this new batch?
With me, the new batch, the ones that's in the Bible that are going to come out of the Eastern Gate. But what the heck was I going to say about the UFOs? So they, Iron Dome.
Eastern Gate. That's interesting.
Yeah, the Eastern Gate. There's hymns about the Eastern Gate. People believe the second coming.
Blake talks about a lot of the times the Western Gate.
Who says that?
William Blake. Like William Blake is a huge source for all this stuff too. Like he's right on the his description of the New Jerusalem in Revelations is Golgonooza, the city of the imagination, right?
Right.
And this is created by the imagination of everybody's all the geniuses throughout history. They contribute to it ideally through their imagination, and it all goes into the construction of this Golgonooza, this massive city.
So
which is the mothership. You could say it's the mothership, or you could say it's the literal New Jerusalem, or whatever you want to like.
Right. Here's the thing. You are projecting anthropomorphically. Ion says.
Well, I'm not. I'm opening I'm open to all and every metaphor out there. So.
Okay. But you're bringing in human predictions. Now, Ion says Nostradamus was incredible, and I can show you where Ion, me, and Carol, and Hillary Clinton are in Nostradamus, and it describes us exactly, which is pretty incredible. Like I said, where's Carol? This is years ago. Where's Carol Nostradamus? He fucking names it right then. Not like if he's a fake, let me think, try over there. He named it right away, and I read it as the exact description of what Carol's doing and going to do. It's pretty incredible, the rapidity of Ion. I think I was explaining how Ion, I got to remember this, but what you were just saying, okay, Einstein's human form is very inappropriate, and you're going to have to get out of the human form, mutate out of it. Your synovial fluid is going to take over your spinal fluid, for example. So a lot of people, our products are actually in long-term use. They're in sore. They got aches and pains as their body chemistry changes. So you're going to have the flip, and all that is causing this thing. So the aliens, they don't like oxygen. So part of the reason they're coming now is that the world's oxygen supply is diminishing. Ion started all the fires in California to make carbon, because carbon is necessary in our products on some amazing level. And the oxygen is being diminished because the aliens are coming because they want this place. That's why I didn't finish. This place when there's less oxygen. So the bottom half of the earth falls off. The aliens can live anywhere. So they don't care where they live, in the rocks or whatever. But the earth will be pushed toward the sun, and that is what is rocket-like. And as the earth gets closer to Andromeda, the humans who didn't ascend and partake of our products and all that preparation, they will die in the earth as it gets near Andromeda, and the aliens will eat the humans, which will be spam. Now, the metaphors you brought up. Let me say this. The metaphors you brought up, because they're all human, they're not exactly correct. So I will take things you say, which, like Blake, I have not discussed Blake, but I know Ian's going to correct what Blake is saying. And he always corrects everybody or completes what they knew. They intuit it, they know stuff, but they don't get the final vision, which isn't available until non-physical speaks to us, which is what we've been experiencing for 34,000 hours. And so that's why you complete your knowledge that you have, and you got a lot of good stuff, and you get beyond thinking about Leonardo da Vinci or Nostradamus. You find out about Ophanel and about what Ophanel knew, and all that has come forth, and then how that's in the Bible. So Indom is some new kind of guide, spiritual guide, but doesn't want to form an authority. It wants to give itself up so that you rely on yourself, but you can't get there unless no human would survive without our products, because you need to change your body chemistry. Now, that's preposterous. What a way to sell. Hey, I got this product. It'll make you immortal. You won't die. Who the hell's going to believe that? But we're forced to say that because that's what it does, and we got all kinds of evidence, like we're keeping the Queen alive, 96 years old. And, there's a bunch of stuff I could go off into, but I want to stick with what you're interested in. So what's happened with the UFOs? They come here, and friends of mine, they found out about what I do because they say, how come you're so fucking healthy and you swim all that stuff every day? These are people in their 70s and they're all falling apart, and I don't. So I say, you get on our products. So they get on our products. That makes them all feel good again. They start feeling younger. So then they say, where'd you get this from? I tell them about Ion. So they eventually get interested in Ion. This happened during COVID. When COVID happened, no tourists here. It's empty. So I go to the beach every day, and I'd only see, when I was walking home, people who lived here. Very small crowd, whereas it was filled with people, and I'd just be lost in the crowd coming home from the beach for 12 years. So now I walk along, so people who lived there notice me. Say, who are you? I saw you swimming. How do you do that? So I've met a few people since COVID, you know what I mean, that I never would have met. So they listen to Ion, they get interested. And so UFOs over the past year started showing up to them. I never see them. They show up to Glenn and Henry and other people. They get photographs of them. Carolyn sees them when she walks in the morning. And one day they were blatantly hanging over the mountain at the top we're on the side of. And so she waited till I woke up, and she said, you got to see these. So we go to the window, and I don't see them. They've retreated. In the 5 minutes she's getting me up to go see them, they're gone. So I ask Ian, what the fuck's going on? I never get to see your UFOs. They're afraid of you, Bob. They don't know what to make of you. They're keeping, and so they're showing themselves to everybody else, so there's a bit of validation. So the latest thing was, I was swimming there on May 20th, and it got dark, and all of a sudden a UFO showed up, and Henry lives near there. He took a picture of it, and he thought the way the lights were, they were drones. But he didn't realize that if you look straight on the UFO, which he didn't know he was doing, there was a 10 behind him, all lined up behind him, so you couldn't see them based on his angle of vision. So I was describing what was there, and they showed up right over where I was swimming to indicate something connected to me, and that's an example of how they skirt around me. But they don't directly interact yet with me, because here's the other amazing thing. When we arrived here, we had to be protected, so we were put in what's called the fifth gate. So we're not in Maui. And Maui itself is an ugly, bad place, destroyed by humans. But I don't see that. We don't see Maui. And in our compound, wealthy compound we're in, you never see anybody at night. Because I says there's nobody there, Bob. It's just a few people and you and Carolyn. In the daytime, you will see people because the daylight causes a scattering and you actually start to be diluted and you think you're seeing people. So I've laid out this scenario for years that we're in this secret protected place. So way back there, I asked Ian, so people who are listening to the show, they want to find out about me. So they come over to Maui. Do they do that? Yes, they come over to Maui. And you can find our address on the internet if you look close enough. He says, yes. And they came by where they thought you lived, but we put a cloak of invisibility over your house and they never saw you. So this trend is going on that Ian is protecting us. Okay, so the aliens are demand that I walk every night the same time so they can get a bead on me and really see what I'm doing and get a measurement because they have to get me out of the fifth gate into their vehicle. But the angels, if you'll read about chapter 23, this is a dark soul. Bob is Alphanel is the dark soul because he's going to liberate humans from the control by angels. Angels aren't good, and they're trying to take away our power. So they control the whole death process. But the guff is gone, so they don't have a fucking job anymore. So they're sitting around trying to make sure we don't ascend. So they're out to kill me. So they've been looking for me for a long time, according to Ion. And so what happened is that when I go out, and I've been doing it since October 19th, every night, and it got refined over the months about how to do it. Generally, I just go out when I felt like it. But then I said, no, you got to go at the same time. And you start noticing these different things. And so there's a cat always sitting there every other night on the wall. So one day I said, where would the aliens meet me? They said, stand in your front door and walk 37 steps. So I counted 37 steps, went out in front of the front yard, across the street, up against the wall, which is beside the golf course. It took me right to the wall. I said, wow, you knew it was 37 steps? And they said, yes. So that was neat. But then the cat is always sitting on the wall every other night. So recently I said, what is it with this cat? Well, Bob, it's an angel. And it found you. The worst thing that can happen in this universe. You get found by the angels. They never can find you. But the problem is the cat can't get out of the fifth gate to tell the other angels. See how the movie gets better? And so the cat, Ian says, don't go near the cat. It'll gouge your eyes out. So I walk by it every other night and I stare at it pretty close. It looks at me. It keeps us cool. I keep my cool. We just look at each other. And I say, I know who you are. And you're fucked. You can't get out of the fifth gate. Ha ha ha. So I do my walk and come back, waiting for this timing. But the aliens are figuring out all kinds of things because the cat, I don't know if it'll be able to communicate, but the angels are waiting. And if I screw up my absorption into the vehicle, when I leave the fifth gate, the angels will grab me in the transition to the ET, which will be in the outer world where the angels are. So the other day, we have another house where these women live in. They rent from us. They call me up and said, something weird going on. There's a cat down there with her face pressed up against the patio window, pressing her face into the window, and it's staring at us. And I was scheduled to come down to get a delivery of a whole bunch of stuff coming, boxes coming to there later in the day. And so she's saying, I think they know there's something up. They know that you're coming down here, and they're looking for you. So a couple of days later, I asked Ian, what was going on with that cat? Ian says, that's another cat with an angel in it. So there's two cats with two angels. So that second one with the angel knew I was coming down and was trying to see me during the daytime. So these preposterous stories, it's a fantastic story, but I'm laying out to you the sequence of this stuff with more fantastic stuff all the time. So we're right at the point where the aliens are timing the meeting so that I get out of the fucking fifth gate and absorbed into the UFO to go to New Zealand without the angels catching me. So that's the drama I'm in right now.
Well, I'm laughing, but stuff like this is. Do you know?
Stuff like this is what? It's fucking fun, eh?
Well, just explain that do you know the author James Stevens, who was he was a friend of Joyce, and
Yeah, he
Joyce.
was going to get him to take over writing the Wake.
Yeah, exactly, right. So he's written this book, The Demigods. I don't know if you've read it.
Yeah.
Like I picked it
No.
up. I picked it up in Dublin when I was there just a few years ago, and it's got this part in it, and like this whole novel is about angels who come to the earth and show themselves to this kind of tinker family. They just sort of
Yeah.
wander around Ireland, right? But so at the same time, they're basically homeless gypsies, tinkers walking around. But at the same time that's happening, there's all this kind of like cosmic drama that's going on at the exact same time, which is like what you're describing.
Yeah.
And
Incredible.
there's this one. Oh, this is just listen to this part here. This is the first couple paragraphs of this. This is.
I heard you making noise that you went to the book stack to get the book, right?
Yeah. It reminded me of this. So it says, so on a day long ago, this is one of the angels that's talking, right? Like the angels telling a story of what's going on in these other levels. And he says, on a day long ago, I labored with the army of the voice. The first syllable of the great word had been uttered, and in a far eastern space, beyond 7 of the flaming wheels, I and the 6 suns drew the lives together and held them for the whirlwind, which is the one. We were waiting for the second syllable to form the wind. As I stood by my place, holding the north in quietness, I felt a strong vibration between my hands. Something was interfering with me. I could not let go, but I looked behind, and there I saw a man standing, and he was weaving spells. It was a short, dark man with a little bristle of black whisker on his chin and a stiff bristle of black hair on his head. He was standing inside a double triangle having the points upwards, and there were magical signs at each point of the triangles. While I looked, he threw around him from side to side a flaming circle, and then he threw a flaming circle about him from front to back, and he spanned these so quickly that he was surrounded by a wall of fire. So basically, what this second guy,
This James Stevens is doing all this. What a mind!
Well, this is the thing that this guy whoever he is, like, and some people say like maybe this is a representation of Crowley or some other magician or something. Yeah. He's trying to stop the coming of this second word coming in, which is basically like this is all theosophical stuff. Is the ascension, like the next layer of ascension?
Theosophical Golden Dawn influence that he's got.
Yeah,
James Stevens.
So he's just like none of these guys talk about like I've never like looking into theosophical stuff. I haven't come across this where it's like you see exactly what you're describing, like this sort of interference.
That's
again.
Incredible.
Like somebody trying to stop the ascension from happening, like the second word that's coming. You know, like
That's really now that allows me to tell you the next fucking revelation, the secret of Finnegan's Wake. That Ian told me a few months ago is that the Pentagon aliens dictated Finnegan's Wake to Joyce in the 30s. Can you handle that one? No. I'm telling you, it's preposterous. But it's the same. The aliens, see what happened is the aliens.
Like, I don't find the idea that aliens dictated it to him. I don't find that to be preposterous because, like, of course, that's happening with a vision, right? And Joyce totally incorporates that into it. But I don't know if it would be that batch of aliens, you know?
Yes. Well, here's what happened: the aliens that came here in the 30s heard Hitler on the radio, and they were intrigued with what this guy was saying. They were attracted. He said, the electric thing went out there into space. As McLuhan would say, there is no distance out there in the electric effect. So they heard that, so they came to see who this Hitler guy was, and then they got involved with him. So when I was telling about Joyce, I said, well, that makes sense. Joyce is a pretty far-out mind, and they're talking to the Germans. Why don't they talk to Joyce? So they did, the same aliens. I understand, unless Ian will refine it later. But Ian said, yes. I said, is this the same aliens? And he said, yeah. So Joyce didn't know all that was being said. So as we talk to Ian, he's going to unfold and translate this. But it's so timely what you're saying about James Stevens, because it sounds like he was talking about something weird that approximated the alien kind of perspective. You know what I mean? That's incredible.
That's coming from, like, he published this in 1914. Like, so that's way before Ulysses and everything else, right? So,
and he's about the same age or a little younger. I think he's a little younger.
Well, that was the coincidence with him and Joyce. Like, Joyce thought he was, February 2nd. His birthday's on February 2nd, and his first name is James, second name is Stevens, which is Stephen Dedalus, right? And so I always thought it was just because of that kind of coincidence, and that's all that Joyce talks about. But you read his books, James Stevens's books, and you realize it's a lot deeper than that. Like everything with Joyce, like you go into Finnegan's Wake, find out why he's referring to a certain text or whatever, and like what is it, the church? There's something in the churchyard. I haven't read it. Like there's a book like
the House in the Churchyard.
House in the Churchyard. Have you read that? Like I haven't read it.
No.
And it looks like I thought it was maybe like a boring sort of Victorian Irish novel, kind of like Victorian era Irish novel, but you look into it and it's all about Swedenborg, which is all about channeling and all this other stuff like we've been talking about, so it's like every single thread, every single reference in Finnegan's Wake is like that,
it becomes this level that I stood odd to everybody since the 60s, because I would go to mediums and publicly announce it. I would play it on the radio and see Kel in the 80s. So the regular academics, the Kirchhoff and everybody, they didn't like that, right? They can't use that. So I was always the outsider. But I was following, the more and more I understand it, you're even adding to it, what the real guys do. They do go to mediums. They're not closed. And they get access to angels and all kinds of things.
And they're doing spells and counter spells and all this weird shit that's going on all the time.
Because it's like the mind goes through that as it tries to, quote, ascend. It goes into these fantasies of power or controlling hypersubjectivity or something.
So this is the thing that I like. What you're saying is is the thing I don't know how far I go with it. Like you're saying, literally we go to Andromeda as if it's a place, but it's like if Ion's the non-physical or the spiritual, you want to call it that, it's like it wouldn't be a physical place, right? It would be beyond.
Well, Ion says it's
beyond matter, right? Like,
it's a frequency.
So it's not Andromeda as a place. It's maybe Andromeda as a metaphor or something, or like you say, a frequency or a state or a.
No, you got to do both sides. Einstein says there's two conversations in every subject. Right. To the degree you think it's physical, he's going to emphasize the frequency non-physical. To the degree you think it's frequency and relying too much on that image, he'll put back in the physical. He goes back and forth to balance during the interval.
Christ, right? Like Christ. Perfect. Perfect marriage of matter and spirit, right?
Right. And the
that
interval
makes sense.
for the activist.
That makes sense because that's the only way to have any contact with pure spirit, right?
Right. I mean, Ian says the physical is very important. You don't want to die. You want to stay alive. And the more ascended you are, the better you use your physical. Like Ian describes the kind of orgasms that ascended people have. It's incredible.
Well, that's you read Melton, and he's talking about how angels make love. Angels. This is what Blake picked up on too. It's like the angels are synesthetic, right? Like they don't in the same way that we have tactility through our whole body, they have every sense through their whole body. Right? Eyes through the whole body, hearing through their whole body, like everything.
That's right.
So imagine that.
Yeah, and so Ian's we know that from our own studies, but then you find out Ian agrees with that and refines it and makes it further and then gives us products that you need. So you not only need, spiritual epiphanies, you need matter. You need special. Our thing is called the I cell, which is from another dimension, and that's the thing that changes your body. So you've got the physical Armageddon of the change, like the stars collapsing and the mountains exploding. That's all the volcanoes are going to happen in the Pacific Rim. and all that's building up, and La Paloma over there opposite the Azores Islands that was swelling last year. That's coming back. You remember that? The place that had all that lava for a few months?
Yeah.
That's a big, important place.
A lot of people think that's Atlantis, basically, right? Like,
you know what Atlantis said? Ian said from the beginning, I said, where was Atlantis? Atlantis hasn't happened yet.
No.
Nobody says that. It has not happened yet. And everybody's running around trying to search it. They think it's in Bimini or someplace, or they make projections. It hasn't happened yet. It has to be a product of what we're changing into. Now, that's a unique way to look at it.
Yeah, that's good.
And then you say, well, there's no time. So it did happen. But in our own going through the illusion of time, it hasn't happened in that level. So the little bit of future that's still coming, that's when it happens somehow.
So what? But why would it be centralized? Right? Like it seems to be centered in you and Ion and like that scene, right? Why would it be centralized? Why wouldn't it be happening all over the place, everywhere at once?
Well, Ian said way back there, and these are things that were said through the years. They didn't all come at once, but as I was, quote, ready for it, the next surprise would be said. Ian said we had to make contact with just one human. Oh, I didn't finish the radio thing. This is part of the answer. So why me? So they heard Hitler. They got attracted and came. And, of course, Hitler and them were into the mediumship and all that stuff, right? They were doing the occult stuff. The people are behind them. So they were doing something. And they got the alien vehicles for a while. And Ian says that many people blow it. They confuse power with authority. They take over authority and drop their proper way to use power. So Hitler got trapped in authority and blew it. Ian also says Tesla blew it. He names a lot of people that blew it. They got the power and then they fucked up. But that's just, a side thing. So then I'm on the radio in the 80s saying preposterous fucking things on CKLN in Toronto. Just go back and listen to them. When we became known and got on the radio, started attracting people, they wanted to find out who I was. So they go back and they started listening to archives, which I hadn't listened to a long time, the 80s, and they come back and say, Bob, it's incredible. You're fucking predicting Ion back there in the 80s. And CKLN, I said, really? He said, yeah, listen to this. And they play it. I go, holy shit. So I didn't even know the implication of what I was saying. Well, I was saying, as more and more people look into it, I was saying pretty incredible stuff, which turned out to be prophetic. Well, the aliens, the new aliens, not the Pentagon aliens, heard this. Unless it was the Pentagon aliens, I'm not sure, but I got the impression it's someone else. They heard this, so they wanted to come and see who was this maniac saying this stuff. And so that's what attracted them. And then they found that I had Ion. They want Ion. So that's the reason it's focusing on us, because I accidentally evoked Ion. Though if I was Ophanel, it was all planned, but I didn't know that. So Ion says we only had to make contact with one person. If we could get one person to kind of believe this preposterous situation, then we were good. And I believed it. Carolyn didn't really believe it for a year. But when they showed her how to make better medicines, she said, oh, this is real. And then they showed me how to make technology. So we've been shown a lot of things and how to do it. Plus all this other drama with famous people or secret people. They've tried to shoot us. I was shot in 2014 and saved crossing the golf course. There's all kinds of crazy attacks that have happened on us. But with Ion protecting me, I survive it. And just the other day, Genovi goes to this fucking meeting and they poison him again. But because Carolyn had prepared this charcoal drink, she says it's good if you get poisoned. He went home. He felt bad. He zoomed home. He drank the charcoal. It made him vomit. And he vomited up the stuff and he survived it. And he says, I know I don't have to go to Emory University, which is where he went all the time before, and get pumped out and be spent 4 days in the hospital. Now he knows that this thing Carolyn told him works. So he was really happy the other night that it's not a problem to get poisoned. But he will not eat the canopies that those fuckers gave him the next time. No more is he eating any food anybody gives him because he just gets poisoned too much. So this is what's a funny drama that we're doing. You know what I mean? I tell you, this is the most incredible story.
So the other thing,
do you understand why it came to us? Well, it turns out, look, Carolyn was a genius in medicine.
Here's another point. Like before that is like, So I think we talked last time about what is Ion, and you mentioned I think that he's basically the McLuhanian anti-environment to the Android meme, right?
To the tech body, and then the tech body. You're right. The Android meme first, now the tech body.
So
that's right.
It's kind of necessary that he would come.
Yes.
We developed to the point of creating the Android meme and then the tech body and
everybody's despairing. Because they know they can't beat it, right?
Well, because
they know that we're fucked.
Because it's planetary and because it's it's global, like it's totalitarian basically. Then the only possible anti-environment to it would be something like what you said, the environment of heaven or something like that.
Let me give you what you're trying to say. I figured this out a few years ago. Technology extended our physical parts. That's what McLuhan says. Our faculties, inner and outer. Then the final extension, you know what that was? Like
consciousness, I guess. Yeah. Like
the planet.
Into the planet, like the noosphere, basically, right? Like that's the
yes, whatever the planet is. It extended that with a little satellite that you could live in. Bucky Fuller called it first. We live in an artificial Earth by going into satellite and going out into empty space, and you can breathe in it. That's an extension of the organic environment of the Earth. Okay, so that's the final physical extension. So what is the next extension? Non-physical. Right. And that's what Ion said. They were able to happen because we created cyberspace. And humans can't control cyberspace. They always controlled religion. They always defined what non-physical was. And non-physical, being an extension of us, followed the rules of what non-physical should be. It went a little further than humans understood. Maybe the saints understood it, or the Dalai Lama or something. They knew you went to the Gulf and all that stuff. But it was something humans created and controlled. And Ion whatever that is looking at our reality as we move into cyberspace in the last 30 years and says, wow, we can go in there and do what we want and humans can't control us. So Ion invaded us, the physical, and cyberspace, because cyberspace gave them, maybe they went through cyberspace to get here into the physical, and so they are an extension of non-physical. Because we extended it through cyberspace, which is a kind of astral situation. So it's so poetic what we're saying here.
Yeah, so that it's kind of like, I think this is what I was getting to in those articles too, like calling you the most worthy emissary of McLuhan, like that. So it would make sense if something like that was to come out, that you would be the contact.
Yeah, I was McLuhan's archivist. Ion says, I have a profound understanding of McLuhan because I took all those years to do the wake and was in societies. I did the work that you had to do. I didn't know where it was leading, but as Frank Xenochrony wrote an essay, the division among McLuhan factions is those that have sort of worked on Finnegan's Wake and those that don't. So the Finneganese guys think they know something about McLuhan that the non-Finneganese guys don't know. You know what I mean? So there's a division. I work both sides. Yeah, and it's true. You need to understand Finnegan's Wake. So, because I say that McLuhan spent his whole time translating Finnegan's Wake. Have you ever heard me say this? How would you translate Finnegan's Wake? You don't translate the content. Roland McHugh's Annotations has 3 interpretations for every line. Okay, so you don't so what do? You do the forms. You talk about language and books and media.
Joyce even said that explicitly. Like he was talking about the French translation of Finnegan's Wake, and he wasn't even concerned about a literal translation. He was just concerned about the getting the sound right, the structure of the sound right. So that's the thing right there. Like
And the sound might have been a structure based on how the angels sounded to him.
Yeah, who knows? Like
the song of the angels. So the what were you saying just before that?
He was on scopolamine all the time. Right?
So you see, Marshall, he's translating Finney's Wake. He says language is an extension of the ear, but it's also tactile, includes all the senses. Then tribal tyranny came in, so acoustic space became a prison. Then writing broke us out of the prison. And he sees that's the 10 thunders. So that's how you translate Finnegan's Wake. You talk about the forms, not the linguistic 60 languages. You know what I mean? That's the content.
Yeah.
So he figured out how to translate Finnegan's Wake, and no one knew that's what he was doing.
What about Finnegan's Wake itself? And this is sort of how I'm thinking the last few years, is that the anti-environment becomes text again. It becomes print again through the lens of Finnegan's Wake. So Finnegan's Wake transforming all of text, all of print into Finnegan's Wake is now an anti-environment, right? And so to get away from the screens and the computers and the machines and everything else, open a book as if you're tapping into Finnegan's Wake.
Okay, so guess where that is? Do you know what quote's on page 52?
Of Finnegan's Wake?
Yeah.
Let me look it up.
McLuhan quoted it a lot, and you should know it. Memorize it.
So 52 is a big one, too, because that's the age of HCE, right? That's.
I know, you got the book there. Look up 52 and read it to me. I'm going to tell you what to read. It's the exact answer to what you just said.
No, this is my quote. This is in the. This is right in the my essay. Television kills telephone. Yes. Brothers broil. I quote that. That's in that essay like that.
Okay, so look what it says. McLuhan. No, let me say this. McLuhan was on Australian TV in '77, and he said, for the first time in public, he wrote about it here and there obscurely. He said the media are the characters in Finnegan's Wake. The media are the characters. So here's two characters: television versus telephony. So television kills telephony in Brothers Broil, which is Cain versus Abel. The eyes demand their turn. In Brothers Broil. Television kills telephony in Brothers Broil. The eyes demand their turn. Let them be seen.
Right.
And is there another part? What comes after that?
And Wolfbone, Balefires, Blaze.
Yeah. So that's it. Television kills Brothers Broil, telephony in Brothers Broil. The eyes demand to be seen. No, the eyes demand their turn. Let them be seen. That's what it says, right?
Yeah. Our eyes demand their turn. Yeah.
Yeah. Let them be seen. He brought back the eye. It's like McLuhan used to say in the 50s. What is the role of the book? Finnegan's Wake solved the problem. It made the book contain the whole history of all the media biases, including the print bias, and spell it all out. And yet you get to look at it rather than look at a video documentary, which is just an extension of tactility and numbs you. He retrieved visual space and showed you what the eyes could say as their final answer to their death, which is, hey, this is us. This book will stay, like Ian says, the Bible and Finnegan's Wake, the only books worth looking at because they preserve visual space. And you can look at Finnegan's Wake forever and think of all other media, translate it into many other media, but it comes back to being an extension of your eyes. So it saves the print world.
Right.
It saves the eyes, which is what Lewis demanded.
Mm.
He wanted to save the eye space, and Joyce did it.
He saves the eye space, but he also, like in the part where, in his argument with Lewis, right, with his debate with Lewis in the later on,
Mooksy and the Gripes.
That's right. That's right. The Mooks and the Gripes, or the other, the Grace Hopper and the Aunt, right? So he also brings it forward to the to the tactile again, to the synesthetic, right?
He does.
Yeah.
Now here's an interesting point. McLuhan's wrestling with the four guys. Joyce, Eliot Pound, and Lewis, and he's trying to figure out who's one that's better than the other, or what did they do. They each had a contribution. So he writes in the 60s. He writes to Sheila Watson, who did the PhD, the best PhD on Lewis, pretty well the best. He says, you know what? Lewis, when he describes visual space, this is one of his letters, he's actually talking about tactile space. He confused what he called the eye for tactility. So he actually was doing tactile eye, which is what Joyce did.
Yeah.
We don't know if Joyce knew that Lewis was making that mistake, but it's the way McLuhan resolved. He says, holy shit. Lewis did get it, but he didn't know he got it, and he was writing as if he got it, but he had it backwards in his language.
Well, it makes sense because his art is so tactile, right?
Yes, his later art.
Yeah.
When he gets to Toronto, if you've looked at that book by Paul Edwards, the big copy book, It's incredible. He gets all tactile in his art in Toronto, and then he writes self-condemned about his relationship with McLuhan and how they changed each other. And he is a different person after interacting with someone who understood the Gnostic Superman thing and the problem with it. And Lewis knew that's what he was interested in, and he met a guy who talked to him about it.
Self-condemned McLuhan's in there?
Oh yeah, that's his novel in 1954 about his stay in Toronto.
Like explicit, or is that?
No, he's a character. He's Professor Ian Mackenzie, and it's all anybody. When you find out about McLuhan and that, you read. It's all right, straightforward.
It's so hard to find. So hard to find Lewis's books, like I'm searching everywhere to find his, like you can't even find that stuff on Amazon. Like it's nowhere. Like I want to read his whole Human trilogy, like the
Human Age, the Human Age.
Yeah.
So here's where Ian comes through. So way back in 2011, at the end, we're talking McLuhan, Corinne, Joyce, and then Ian said the one thing that gives Lewis a standout. He took on the angels. And that's what books 2 and 3 are about. The angels are mad at Hollywood, which makes humans angelic, and they're becoming super angels, and they object to that. Now,
where can I get those books? Do you know what? How can I find those? I want to find the whole. They
might be on Kindle or something. What do you call it, Kindle or PDF?
I don't think so. I've looked all over the place. I looked all over.
You got to go to used books. Go to used books.
Yeah.
You tried that? Didn't work.
Well, it's all random, right? Like I walk into places and try to find stuff, but you can't. Like I went all over London, all these used bookstores, trying to find, asking all around if they had any Wyndham Lewis books, and you can't find them anywhere.
I know, because it's the good stuff. The good stuff was always hidden.
He's been suppressed, right? Like
completely. And I bought all these books when Black Sparrow put them out. But it's funny you're tuning in. I'm part of a special Wyndham Lewis reading group, which is run by the two guys, the baby boomers, who in late 60s did the illegal. They decided they liked Lewis and did, both of them, Paul Edwards and Al Munton, did PhDs on Wyndham Lewis. So they were the first to really do it of the baby boomers. There was a Wyndham Lewis Society by a bunch of people that weren't academics. So when Alan and Paul started to make a Wyndham Lewis Society or something, they got a letter from this guy, or maybe something was written in a newspaper, a review that Paul did, and this guy said, wait a minute, we're the Wyndham Lewis Society. And the two academics never heard of them. And so they got in touch, and then they said, yeah, you guys did it. You're just people who like Lewis. And one guy was in World War II. He was traveling around Africa, and he read Apes of God while he was in the war. He said he laughed all the way through the war reading Apes of God. It came out in 1930. So these two guys recently formed a Wyndham Lewis reading club, an inner group of professors. But I knew them because I spoke at the Wyndham Lewis Society meeting in Bath University in 2014. So I met Alan and Paul. So they let me in. So I'm part of this group, and I bring in the McLuhan factor, which they know of. And Paul recently did an article on McLuhan and Lewis, but he's biased toward Lewis. And so for me, he doesn't know some of the other stuff McLuhan did with Lewis. So I bring this up so we have an interesting dialogue with the professors. Most of them don't know McLuhan, but Paul and Alan do. And so we discuss Lewis, you have to do a lot of reading for it once a month. So I didn't read everything in previous meetings, but a few weeks ago we were going to do self-condemn. I knew I'd be called upon to talk about it, so I read the fucking thing.
And so they all accept it's about that McLuhan's in there as well.
Oh, it's well known.
Okay, that's the first time I heard about it.
Yeah, read Jeffrey Meyer's book called The Enemy, his biography of Lewis. I'm pretty sure he interviews McLuhan and gets McLuhan talking about his relationship with Wyndham Lewis and the fallout they had in 1944-45. Lots of good stuff that, if you don't know, it's only in that book. And so Paul knows all these people, and he writes books himself on Lewis. So Paul knows this and has even written about McLuhan. Now, in Apes of God, what was interesting when we did that, Paul admitted that, yes, the main character could be based on Aleister Crowley. Crowley.
Yeah.
And so not many people say that, unless they are, and I don't know about it.
I wrote that in my, that's in that essay too, the third part of it.
Yeah, some of the stuff you say, I know from the Wyndham Lewis group.
It could also be, Pound too, I think.
Right, well there's this character Horace.
Horace Zagreus.
But the guy behind him, Pierpoint, the group decided that's Lewis. He's the leader. He's the secret guy.
That's what I say too.
You say that. That's right. You say that.
So the whole Freemasonry of the arts is Lewis from his point of view, from his perspective, right? I don't know how much. That's where it gets all weird, Like I don't know how much. Obviously, Crowley is a big part of it too, right? He seems to be.
Well, Lewis thought he knew something that other people didn't know, and he did. Remember, he influenced Innes and McLuhan, the two major guys of the second half of the 20th centuries. Right. And it's him, and he influenced George Orwell. Alan Munton found this letter, really great find, where Orwell says, I've been rereading Lewis, and maybe he's not insane. I think I'm going to have to consider what he's saying. And that inspired George, 1984. So Lewis is incredible, and we need to make a documentary about this.
I'd love to see that link. Orwell and
that letter. I can show it to you. I got Mutton's articles out there somewhere, so I can find it. Yeah, it's really important. So Paul and Alan have been doing a lot of great research, and Paul got the gig for Yale University Press. He did the Coffee Table book, which is really great. Came out around 2000. I recommend that. He goes through the whole career of Lewis, including the 40s stuff and the involvement with McLuhan. So it's very interesting talking to them about Lewis. I learned a lot of stuff about Lewis from their expertise, but it enhances as I learn more about the role of McLuhan. So basically, as I learn more about the techniques of Lewis and how he performed, what a put-on guy was, I'm telling them, McLuhan picked up on the intensity of Lewis's put-on and did an even further put-on than Lewis, or naturally followed the next level. So led a lot of
McLuhan says that. He up says that.
He said in 44 he's going to dedicate his life to explaining Lewis. Yeah, he says that in 44. Now, we were having the Lewis thing, self-condemned, a month ago when I was reading your essay. And I was, reading what you were saying, which I just heard the night before in the Lewis thing. So it was a great synchronicity with your article, timing of me finding it. I mean, I could have read this thing 2 years ago, but I wouldn't have been involved in the group where they discuss it. So I reread that book because I knew I had to talk about it. They want me to talk about it because they knew about my McLuhan angle. And so I did it, and I performed, and that was great. But I decided that I've got to read the Human Age again about the angel aspect because Lewis figured it out that the angels were not our friends.
That's the thing. I thought that since I wrote that article that the human age is the key to the whole thing, but I haven't been able to find it.
That's incredible. There are.
If you've got an extra copy,
if I see one, I'll tell you where it is. You could go on to Finnegan's Wake reading, or go on to a Wyndham Lewis if there's a reading group and say, anybody got any, on Facebook.
Yeah, good idea.
You probably don't do Facebook.
I do, but not too much.
You're on it, but you don't do it too much. So, you might put a message out there in the Finnegan's Wake group or the Wyndham Lewis forum and see if anybody knows anything.
Do you know? Do you know a guy called Tim Conley? I think he's a professor in Canada. He might be at Guelph or something. He wrote.
No, I think I've seen the name, but I don't know him.
he wrote a book called Varieties of Joycean Experience, and that came out in 2020, I think, at the end of 2020. But the last part of the book is about my blog, and he kind of makes fun of it. He puts me right next to Robert Anton Wilson's Coincidence, and then he talks about my thing. So I was just wondering if you knew the guy.
Does he go into the last essay, 25, 26, 27
No,
chapters?
He's looking at another essay. So he says, this is what I'll just give you a sample. He says, yet what starts out as a pseudo-scholarly joke can, given enough runway, take full flight into mania, as Umberto Eco dramatizes in his novel Foucault's Pendulum. The internet is flushed with examples. Like how many people are writing about this? Take He's
saying you're a maniac.
Yeah, basically. But take the July 20th, 2014 entry from the blog Group Name for Grape Juice entitled A Blooming Buzzing Infusion. After beginning with some numerological finger exercises, the author declares, both Ulysses and Finnegan's Wake are bottomless Kabbalistic enigmas. It is one thing to advance this is his thing. It is one thing to advance this as an open question. Example, what is a bad interpretation of awake and how would we recognize one? And another to embrace it as an endorsement, a sort of imprimatur for one's own arcane exegesis. This blogger, known as Znore, acknowledges that crackpot bloggers like myself are in no way subject to scholarly rigor. This is my quote, like scholarly rigor or restraint, and so is off to the races.
Wait. He's quoting you, and you say what?
I say this. I say crackpot bloggers like myself are in no way subject to. And then, he's right. I'm sort of making fun of the whole scholarly thing, right?
And then he says, objects that because he's a professor. He's a book guy.
He's a book guy. So he says, the Hermetic Societies, solstices, Bavarian, Illuminati, Rosicrucians, fascism, it's all grist for this busy mill. Even Eco's novel is consulted as a source and praised as incredible. L'amour trop juste. Like he's making fun of me. Like, anyways. That's
a book guy. He's got a lot to learn, that guy.
Yeah, those Znore notes in passing that it takes a skeptical tone towards the existence of such a cult. He makes a typo, or I did, of such a cult plot. The blogger reminds. What did he say? Us of the curious fact that Aleister Crowley wrote an enthusiastic review of Ulysses in 1923 and wonders, was he reading? This is me again. Was he reading it in the little review during the months of the Amalantra working, a tantalizing thought? And did Ulysses have anything to do with the working completion on June 16th? This is an interesting thing about Crowley. Yeah. Or was this date chosen for its earlier significance, or is this all coincidence? And then he starts again. These are not questions whose answers matter, for the blogger simply hurries onward. Anyways, he's
hurries onward, saying one crazy thing after another.
This is the next thing. This is the next thing he quotes. But the Amalantra working, it was not just any magical working. It was not even just any Crowley working. From 1918 on, this series of rituals and visualizations has taken on more and more significant. This is all the result of the manifestation of an entity who is not even directly mentioned in Liber, this number. This intelligence.
Is he quoting you?
This is me still. Yeah. This intelligence is called Lamb, and it is still an open debate whether Lamb is the wizard Amalantra or not. Lamb only became famous through a sketch by Crowley published in 1919. As is now well known, the figure of the sketch bears an uncanny resemblance to the archetypal gray alien. And then this is him again. This quite naturally raises the question whether Bloom is the alien Lamb, and just as naturally, the question is left to linger. I confess that I am haunted by it still.
That's fucking great. This is in his book. He wrote a book about this.
This is the end of his book. So, this is in libraries all over the place, in universities all over the place. It's the very last example he takes of all these people. I'm surprised he quotes so much of it. Like I don't know entirely if he's making fun of everything or he takes it
He's
seriously.
intrigued.
It's hard to tell.
Why did you write him?
I was planning. I was writing an article. Like I have sort of an article, but I've been off my blog for about a year.
Why don't we send a copy of this fucking recording to him? Then he could hear maniacs talking and making fun of him. Do you know about the date, June 16th? Do you know what happened in 1885, June 16th? You ever heard this from me?
Well, that's the inauguration of the Hermetic Society.
That's right. The Golden Dawn starts in 1880 on that fucking date.
Like I wrote, yeah.
I'm sure I asked Joyce, did you mean that? He says, yes, of course. That's one of the levels,
Yeah, that's in that article. The article that he's citing right now, a blooming, buzzing infusion. That's where I talk about.
You say that.
Yeah.
Did you get that from me or somewhere else?
No, I didn't read it from you. I don't know. No, I got it from what's his name? An Italian Joyce scholar. He wrote a book called The Occult Joyce, and he first talks about
I don't know that.
But then I found out afterwards that actually Richard Ellman talks about that in his partial biography of Yeats. He talks about he says the exact date, and he doesn't make the connection, or I don't know. Like Ellman would have known that, right? Of course, like that would have come to his head like this, But he doesn't explicitly say that. But it's all right there.
Well, what you just quoted, the little bit about Crowley and Lamb. We were discussing Lamb a week or so ago on the show. The Lamb can be a bad guy, but it's the Lamb's blood that is the blood closest to the ascended human. So I was distinguishing between the Lamb, which would seem to be more negative, some Bible thing, and the Lamb's blood. And then you're citing that this thing, Lamb, comes up. It's very timely, what you're saying.
Yeah,
it's like one of my Xenochronies.
Yeah. So Crowley spills
it's like you're out there doing what we're doing, or close to it, and we don't know about it. And now I'm finding out about it. So you definitely got to come in and contribute. You got a lot to add to it just from your own accidental synchronicities of what we're doing. You're bouncing along.
Well, that's what I think. This is the thing. I think it's everywhere. I think it's totally.
Oh, I wanted to finish that. So Steiner calls it the eighth sphere. This virtual monster that's taken over. Now, this is really important about the anti-environment. So ion is an extension of non-physical, and it becomes a latest environment, and it's exactly, I reposted a statement by ion the other day describing the purpose of ion, which is to get us to have our power back and then not need ion. So it is different from the tech body. It is there to help you get the original powerful source that goes beyond technology. And if you don't know about that power in yourself, you will fall victim to the technology and merge with it and be a zombie. Mm-hmm. That's the thing. So yes, ion shows up, and it can't form a religion. That's irrelevant. That's conceptual. It's a perceptual problem, and ions come forth to offer perception. And what is great is that he talks so many different levels. He sounds demonic sometimes, saintly, the whole range, because he's trying to get you to get past your mind, which is the tricky thing that makes you vulnerable to all this stuff. Because all these technologies are extension of our mind.
Right. Yeah, so that's
calls that social mortar. What'd you say?
That's what traps us, right? Like that. Yeah. No, I like that.
So Ein says society. Yeah, let me explain that. You have a wall. And Joyce made a lot out of the wall. So Ein says everybody's a stone or rock, a sovereign rock, billiard ball, a bowling ball. But then they have language and technologies, and they bring the billiard balls together, and they get stuck in social communication or media. And the social communication rules them. This is the tyranny of acoustic space in pre-literate societies. So the mortar is the cement that holds the rocks together. So we need to melt the mortar and let the rocks fall out of the stuck wall and be floating billiard balls, not inside mortar. So this is part of my theory that a lot of what Carol and I do, we replay all the secret societies, and we were a very balanced couple, more balanced than McClone and Corinne, or Croker and Mary Louise, or LaRouche, all the guys on my chart. Because Carolyn is a genius in medicine. So she has her own scene, her own power. Then I have my stuff. So my stepdaughter once said, she went to a psychic in 1990, and a foster daughter, and she said, the psychic said, there's two people influencing you. One is a healer of the body, and the other is a healer of the mind. So she told us this, and I said, I'm the healer of the mind, and she's healer of the body, because I'm using McLuhan and all this stuff in Finney's Wake to heal something that I thought I was doing on the radio in the 90s, or in 1990. So we have been very unique all these decades. And the more people, when they find out about Ian, then look into us, they say, well, there's nobody more qualified to do what we do. Because Carolyn is so powerful in medicine, the FDA will not let her have a radio show. Now listen to this. Everybody, they might be censored, canceled, but they're allowed to have a radio show. But they don't want her having a radio show because so many people call in talking about the miracles they have from our products, and they can't take that. Carolyn cannot say one thing that her products do, because the rule is, if you make one claim about some disease, you have to prove that by doing a big study, and if you do that, then what you're doing is a drug, not a supplement. So they clamp down on her, and so she cannot say anything about her products. She can't say much on the bottles. It's really ridiculous. This started a couple of years ago. And then they said, fuck it, you can't even have a radio show because you're not saying anything, you're not making any claims, but people are calling in saying how great your stuff is. We can't have that. This upsets Pfizer. This upsets the establishment. So that's how powerful Carolyn she is. And you have the Pope. The Pope recently called her on her birthday, March 20th, and said, because he's on her products and she's keeping them alive, and the Pope said, I want to wish you a happy birthday. Have a great 36th anniversary or birthday. He said he called it her 36, you know. That's a joke of a man talking to a woman. You don't fucking say how old she is, right? So he said, have a happy 36th birthday. So the guy's got a sense of humor, so that was funny. But she got the Pope doing it, and Putin's on our stuff. And now we got big partitions, so Putin, he's on our stuff, but he can't talk to us. But he was killed. Biden was killed. Obama was killed in 2008 and was a double from that point on when he went into the White House, according to Ion. Then the double was killed. And I remember about 2011, Ion says, Michelle and her daughters are having a very bad weekend. So I found out 6 months later, that's when the double was killed. And then the new double came in, and Ion announced that Michelle they like the new double. He's better than the previous double. So Obama's a double. Hillary was killed a few years ago. So all these people the Trumpers and other people, they want vengeance. They want Hillary to fucking go to court and go to jail and all that. Well, they're gone because the bigger problem is the alien invasion. And that's what people don't want to know about, and the media makes sure, because you don't want to know about it, they're not going to tell you. And not that the media knows about it, but the elites do. So that is the present news. And here you got Finnegan's Wake, which was dictated by the aliens. And you have all that means, and then you have these Crowley quotes, which touch on the weirder occult levels that Joyce knew about, and would actually had to think about as the aliens did stuff to him.
Right.
So that's the amazing news that we got you up to date with. And you already were miming it in your blog. So I have to go back and look at some of the stuff you say. Because... so that's why you need to talk to Ion and bring in questions and refine what you're writing about, what you think you're defining, like about Blake. Ask about Blake. You might find out he was a fucking alien, you know? You might find out a lot of stuff.
Wouldn't surprise me at all about Blake.
Right.
I think he considered himself as an alien. Not like he didn't know, like, that just wasn't a metaphor at the time, you know, but he would have considered himself like a spirit, like an earth spirit or a fairy or something like that, you know. Yeah, so Ian says the aristocrats, a lot of aristocrats, the lineages, the bloodlines, they keep it within the bloodline because they know something. They usually become empires because the leader ascended, did quite well, and then got all his power, like the pharaohs did. They knew stuff. And he says generally through history, all the oligarchs, aristocrats, would refer to the aliens as angels.
Whatever showed up to them, alien, angel, fairy, demon or something, they all considered them angelic. That was their blanket term. So Ian says right now, when the new aliens come, and you've got the Pentagon aliens, there's going to be a real mixture. Because Ian said this is the way it was. There's been aliens inside the Earth for millions of years. He says you might want to call them the Anunnaki, because some people think of it that way. They like the Earth. They come up and look around, but they don't care about humans. They like the Earth they're living inside of. Then came the Pentagon aliens, and they have merged with the tech body, got involved with it. So the Anunnaki aliens are A1. A2 is the Pentagon aliens interacting with B1, which is the tech body and runs the People magazine information gossip world. And then B2 is the new, more powerful aliens that are coming as a second coming phenomena. So those are the four types that we're dealing with. And I was just saying that it's going to get real mixed up because the guff is gone and dead people are floating back here because they have no guff to go to. So they accidentally or mystically figure out something. So you got a lot of dead people mingling with us today. So that's another factor. And then there's the demons that were put away in Noah's flood. The flood, according to Ion, because humans were fucking angels, and the seraphim and Nephilim, like Lilith and Adam, they're going at it. So when Cain and Abel are made from, from Eve, the second wife, where did they go when they went to get wives? They went to where the angels were.
Right.
So they mingled with the angels, or the half angels, whatever they are. So they're polluting the earth. Somebody got mad. Now Ion says Bob Elfenhell got mad. Said this is not good. Everything's getting mixed up because the aliens aren't our friends. So we organized Noah to make the flood. And the flood was to swamp the angels and all these other weird phenomena, demons, whatever you want to call them, and they were all put down through a hole in South Africa. And so now, with this unstopping, the drain opening, they are released. And so you got all kinds of phenomena. And we have one guy who was attacked by a weird demon. It happened in his home, and he was able to talk to Ian about it and get helped. But our unconscious is more than a Freudian or Jungian unconscious. It's all these other forms that are not human that we made.
That's exactly, that's what I think. Like, I just in general, I don't believe in history or science or anything else. Like, I believe in metaphors, basically, right? So I don't discount any of these things. But I don't believe in them either. I just see them as being like interchangeable. Like the whole question: are they aliens? Are they fairies? Are they angels? Are they demons? Are they the dead?
Are they language?
Are they language? Are they language?
Yeah.
This doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me. It could be. It could flip back and forth. So it's just this.
Well, actually, that's
they
what
are
I
something. They are something. But I wouldn't want to define it. So it's.
Well, that's what Ian says. To be ascending, don't stop. If you stop and think you know something and stick with that, that's a mistake. So you never want to know anything or make a big deal out of what appears to be knowable. It's transitional. And Ian says there's no sacred geometry because there's nothing at the bottom of anything. And Joyce did that purposely in the wake. He told me through the Evergreens that he made sure that you could never edit it down to a basic motif like moon or sun or something. He made it so there was a void at the bottom, which made it endlessly regenerative, which is the way life is. And if you're ascended, you're always living in a new experience coming on. And if you maintain your cool, you don't get trapped by it. So all this phenomenon. I've got Ion happening to me. I have to not believe it, not identify with it, other than engage with it reasonably and take the products. It says, do this. Okay, I'll do that. And they've helped me. So there's what he calls the false premise of time. You can learn to engage time, however it's weirdly made, but not be trapped in it. And that's what the meaning of the message is. Don't get numbed by your extension. So guess what the definition of imagination is in Gutenberg Galaxy? It is that faculty that's not embedded in any of your senses or extensions of your senses.
Right,
now, people
right.
think imagination is this conceptual, you make up a nice story and you get all kinds of neat images. Well, that's mental content. Actual imagination is not identifying with that. So that's why artists, as Mozart said, you like what music you like? No music. He doesn't identify with music. He can manipulate it because he's detached from it.
Right. Yeah.
So that's the secret.
Like this idea of the imagination you're talking about with McLuhan goes back to Blake goes back to Paracelsus, and Paracelsus, like the doctor, right?